With the release of the Expedition base set in 2002, the Pokemon power mechanic was split into Pokepowers and Pokebodies. It stayed this way until the Black and White base set in 2011 combined the two mechanics back into abilities. With Pokepowers spanning 35 sets and over 4,000 cards, I found the most powerful Pokemon ever. Number 10. Fainting Spell. Effects that trigger on a coin flip are often not worth playing, but a chance to instantly knock out the opponent's attacking Pokemon is too good to pass up, especially when the Pokemon also has two great attacks. Gengar from Stormfront was a powerful meta card featured in multiple decks, including Mother Gengar in 2009 and Cursegar in 2010. Without the versatile and powerful attacks Shadow Room and Poltergeist, the Fainting Spell Pokepower might not have been enough to carry this card to success. Additionally, Fainting Spell only triggers if Gengar is knocked out by damage, not including damage counters placed by effects or special conditions. While the 50-50 chance of instantly knocking out a Pokemon is insanely good, Gengar only made number 10 on my list today due to the stipulations I stated, and also because we have a lot of incredible cards to discuss today. Number 9. Portrait. The best Pokepowers often support the player by drawing cards, searching for cards, or setting up their deck's strongest Pokemon. Smeargle's Portrait Pokepower can realistically do any of that, so long as your opponent has useful supporter cards in their hand. Smeargle existed during a format where Professor Oak's New Theory, Professor Juniper, and N were all widely played supporter cards, so there was a good chance that your opponent would have a useful supporter in their hand for you to copy with Portrait. The risk to this Pokepower was if your opponent only had one supporter card and it would hurt you to use it, like a Professor Juniper which forces you to discard your hand. So players would often play their hand down to a point where they wouldn't mind using a Juniper, or they might pass up on using Portrait entirely if it could potentially hurt more than it would help. Number 8. Energy Rain. Blastoise is famous in the trading card game for flooding the board with energy. Blastoise EX from the Fire Red and Leaf Green set is no exception to that, as it came equipped with the Energy Rain Pokepower. Energy Rain reads, as often as you like during your turn, you may attach a water energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon and put one damage counter on that Pokemon. This Pokepower had infinite potential since these energies could be attached to any type of Pokemon and also as many times a turn as you like. Blastoise EX's first notable success was at 2005 World Championships in the Senior Division with a very consistent deck using Delcatty and Magneton for support, but also as attackers when their typings were advantageous. Also included were Deoxys EX Attack Form and Deoxys EX Normal Form as Psychic-type attackers. This Blastoise EX would go on to be most known for the LBS deck the following season, which focused around Lugia EX and Steelix EX as attackers, with Blastoise EX to power them up. Number 7. Psychic Bind. Number 7 is Psychic Bind, which is the Pokepower on Mesprit from Legends Awakened. Psychic Bind reads, when you put Mesprit from your hand onto your bench, you may use this power. Your opponent can't use any Pokepowers during their next turn. While some decks were completely reliant on Pokepowers and others used them sparingly, deciding to restrict your opponent from the Pokepower mechanic for their entire next turn was a brutal effect. Mesprit was seen in many types of decks, including AMU, which used Mesprit level X as the main attacker, DPL, which was an SP toolbox that could occasionally slap down a Mesprit at the right time, and Palkia G Lock, which used Mesprit's Psychic Bind as a main strategy of the deck to lock your opponent out of Pokepowers turn after turn. Number 6. Dark Palm. If you played competitively between 2007 and 2010, you were terrified of Dusknoir's Dark Palm coming down out of nowhere and sending one of your Pokemon away. Dark Palm reads, once a turn, if your opponent has 4 or more benched Pokemon, you may choose one of them and shuffle that Pokemon and all cards attached to it into their deck. I would try to fit an evolution line of Dusknoir into any deck I could, because it created opportunities to outplay opponents who did not play around the Dark Palm Pokepower. Something to remember is that Rare Candy used to allow you to evolve a Pokemon that had just come into play, so you could bench Duskull, play Rare Candy to immediately evolve into Dusknoir, and then activate Dark Palm all in the same turn. A popular strategy was to force your opponent's strong and established active Pokemon to the bench with something like Cyclone Energy or Warp Point, and then Dark Palm it into their deck. Number 5. Quick Search. In modern day Pokemon, this ability on a Stage 2 Pokemon would not be quite as good as it was in the era of Pokepowers, since the game was slower and Stage 2 Pokemon were faster thanks to Rare Candy not having that pesky errata yet that states that it can't be used on a Pokemon which came into play this turn. Quick Search Pidgeot was a staple card in 2005 decks like Rockalock and Nidoqueen, and 2006 decks like LBS and Evolutions, for its simple yet impactful Pokepower that lets you search your deck for any one card. If you've ever needed just a single card from your deck to complete your setup or take your final prize card, I'm sure you can imagine just how game-changing this Quick Search Pokepower could be. Number 4. Bright Look. You either hated it or loved it, but Luxray GL Level X's Bright Look dominated the game in an aggressive fashion for quite a while. With the powerful support SP Pokemon received, like Energy Gain and Poketurn, Luxray GL Level X could be your attacker, your gust effect, or both, depending on the deck. When you put Luxray GL Level X from your hand onto your active Luxray GL, you may switch to defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This allowed players to hunt down weaker benched Pokemon and quickly take prize cards faster than most other decks could. Luxray GL Level X was an incredibly important card in the 2009 and 2010 formats, featured in 2009 decks like Dialga Palkia Luxray, Luxape, and Luxdrill, and 2010 decks like Luxchomp and Jumpluff. Honorable mention, Time Walk. Before we get to the top 3, I wanted to recognize Azelf from Legends Awakened for its Time Walk Pokepower. This was an incredible card with a unique ability which allowed you to look through your prize cards for a Pokemon card and switch it with a card in your hand. We've seen several successors of this card, such as Peonia and Hisuian Heavy Ball, but Azelf was unique because you put your prize cards back in any order and could note which prize was which to take the exact one you needed in later parts of the game. Number 3. Telepath. Gardevoir's Telepath is the overpowered predecessor of Smeargle's Portrait Pokepower. Once during your turn, you may search your opponent's discard pile for a supporter, and use that supporter as the effect of this power. While this Pokepower is limited to only once per turn, it is still so powerful because it lets you play a second supporter every turn, courtesy of your opponent. Some of the most popular supporters at this time were Roseanne's Research, Team Galactic's Wager, and BB's Search, to give you an idea of what effects Telepath will copy. This Pokepower is strong enough, but what pushed this card even further was its Psychic Lock attack, which deals 60 damage and says your opponent cannot use any Pokepowers next turn. Ironic that the number 3 card on a video all about Pokepowers locks your opponent out of using Pokepowers. If you asked anyone who played competitively during this time what the best deck in 2008 was, I wouldn't be surprised if every single person told you it was Gardevoir Gallade. Number 2. Cosmic Power. Claydol from Great Encounters is one of the most iconic support Pokemon in the history of the game. Its Pokepower Cosmic Power allows you to put up to 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, and then draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand. This Pokepower was incredible for cycling through your deck, putting back cards you didn't need right now, and hopefully drawing into situationally better cards. Throughout 2008, 2009, and 2010, Claydol was featured in dozens of different archetypes since its Pokepower was so good and could be utilized in just about any deck. Number 1. Setup. Although Claydol was so widely played, Uxie may have been even more popular due to it being a basic Pokemon. Uxie's Pokepower setup allows you to draw until you have 7 cards in hand, after you play Uxie from your hand to the bench. Shaman EX and then Crobat V followed in Uxie's footsteps, but could never live up to be as good as the original setup Pokemon. Uxie can also recycle itself with its Psychic Restore attack. Uxie was played in every type of deck, even more so than Claydol since Uxie offered a burst of draw power as early as turn 1, and it did not require any additional costs or evolutions. I selected Uxie's setup as the best Pokepower of all time, and I'm very confident in this ranking. But let me know what your top 10 Pokepowers of all time would be in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more Pokemon TCG content and support my channel using PotownStore.com for all of your PTCG live code card needs. Dragon Shield sleeves, the best sleeves in the game. PokemonCard.io for creating deck lists and sharing them with the community, and Into the AM, outfitting your passion. Find coupon codes and links in the description down below. Thanks for watching here on Celio's Network.